time in California history where we did not gain congressional representation. Let me repeat that. The first time in our history in California that we after 10 years, did not gain congressional representation. And Mike was absolutely right. Texas gained 4, Florida gained 2, Georgia gained 2, and people tend to move where their job goes. And that gives you an illustration of the last 10 years that we did not grow like we're used to growing here in the state of California. And you had your hand up over here.
And one thing that I would like to know what the state actually is there's now a habit of aggressive environmental groups suing local cities for water, wastewater, or along that line. And they're winning. People will be paying debt. So they're now putting people at much higher water rates, silver rates, so what I'm thinking is this is not going to stop. It's like just a whole Pandora's box of opportunity for these groups. The state set up some kind of assistance because they're suing under the EPA allows these sort of buildings to do government not. One in fact allows them to. So what I'm saying is that Camarillo or twice and once. There's got to be a state or some kind of cooperative or state to say, hey, we're being sued. We cannot handle this if our residents are going to suffer. Can you come up with some kind of...
I'll answer, but it seems like Mike is the first that seems to say something, so Mike, go ahead and then I'll answer what I think.
Bonnie's correct, but we're one of those cities that didn't lay down. They pursued us here, so we're the first ones they sued on these new water regulation laws, and they had some things on the elements that you can't measure. They couldn't tell us how to measure it, you got to control it, but no one can tell you how to do it, and to get it out of the water. They want you to almost drink it when it goes into the... We are tertiary treatment right now. Our water is fantastic. I wouldn't drink it. But they want you to get to the point you can do that. We didn't allow them, if they sued us, we want it. Every time they do this, we're going to end up doing it because what we know it's going to cause, we roll over, it's going to cause more costs from our own health. So cities have to stand up against these people, but up in Sacramento, they've got to change water resource control board is where a lot of this happens.
And what I would do is, as I mentioned, the bureaucracy, you like public too many times you have local jurisdictions on water agencies. I would prefer that you have one, and then you can deal and affect that one, because you have so many of them all around that are, again, giving conflicting. Some of them are going after, and some of them are more radical on the local level. I would rather just have one of the agencies. And then to also say, there's too many of these agencies that are too powerful, that are unaccountable. See, I always get frustrated in the legislature when the legislature gives their responsibility to an unaccountable board or commission or agency. If you look at the Coastal Commission, the Air Resources Board, they wreak as much havoc, if not more, on some of these regulations we're talking about than the legislature. And at least in the legislature, if you don't like what your elected representative is doing, you can get rid of your elected representative. There's at least some kind of cause of action if they're not being responsive to your voice or your concerns. And a lot of these agencies, one, you don't know who's on there, and two, if you're frustrated with what they're doing, there's no way to get rid of them. And I believe that we should, as a legislature, stop empowering these agencies and do a job that you guys like them to do. And if you don't like the job we're doing, vote us out. But at least there's accountability there. And we have too many agencies where there's no accountability.
From the state level, where it finds that, oh, that's a city takes over at this point, or a county. I'm just thinking of the state thing coming down, because
what you can do is write in your questions, and you can send you that information.
Okay.
Just state, I mean, there's so many local ones, and there's already a lot of federal ones, and that's one of the biggest problems. And you have not only multiple ones if you want to go through the state, but you have multiple local, you have multiple federal. One example is a company I was in between the Assembly and the Senate. We had to deal with so many different organizations, like the PUC, the FERC, the Coastal Commission, and it's a great technology that will work to create energy, but it doesn't go through because there's too many agencies that want a part of it. But we can do that. We can send it to you, write it down, and I'm always open to get the information from university folks. But at the end of the day, this commission,
like a random intake type.
I couldn't agree with you more. But there's so many different ideas. Like for example, Hoover comes out with a lot of great ideas. But the best way I can describe this is there's no buy-in from the legislature. And a lot of times we come with great ideas and we try to question it. The reason why I like the commission is everybody has a buy-in because we appoint these 8 commissioners in a nonpartisan way, or bipartisan, I should say. And then they come back and they give the recommendations. At that point, how do you say, hey, we instructed you to come here, and there's several up and down, and there's no pressure on the legislature to get them out? Because I've seen outside groups like Claremont, California Forward, there's a lot of great ideas out there that are not implemented, and it seems like, hey,
Is that where the idea comes from?
well, it's not where the idea comes from. It's just people in the legislature have a adversity to change and the status quo. It's always harder to change and upset the status quo, even when things are bad. I mean, look,
Because it's bad politically.
I don't think it's necessary, but okay. For example, my commission. For example, the governor gets 4 appointments, and each one of the legislative leaders gets an appointment. So at some point, all of them have a voice in that group. It's not paid for by taxpayers. That group can come up with these solutions. And my guess is they will engage a lot of these Sugar Commission, a lot of Claremont Institute, California Forward. They'll engage university folks and get those ideas, and then they'll try to streamline it and come back to the legislature. So hopefully we get change in the right direction.
Question, Staff.
Okay, sure.
Okay, since you're off the water, I got this email from Tom Clitlock, and he has built some comments back there on the water. As we all know, California is suffering in the valley.
Right.
Okay, I did not know the water would be pumped into the ocean. Billions of gallons. Now they're wanting to know idea about the water here. Who supersedes what? California, because of the smell, and we're allowing these people to get away with it, the water is being wasted. What is wrong with California coming through? You people up there, I don't mean, don't get me wrong, but our representatives, what is wrong with them not doing something about this?
Well, the federal government supersedes the state, and it's not to the court. So I am supportive of Clintock. I know Clintock, Denham, and I think Lundgren are all offering that bill. I'm very supportive of that bill. But the federal government, they will supersede us when it comes to the Endangered Species Act and the Delta Smell. So it really has to come from the federal government.
Because they're worried about it superseding California. Okay, now the other question I have to ask you. Okay, smart. I understand you're on a commission in Sacramento. Committee. And I had 2 months ago, I didn't want to get out of smart. And I get emails to please investigate. And I don't know if you got my email or not. And it's gotten to where they're starting to go now all over. And I don't know if you checked into it or not, but
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
It does affect. It does affect California legislation.
Okay. Given what we know about it, which is it makes it so that insurance companies can't deny us for having pre-existing conditions. Insurance companies can't throw us off the insurance coverage if we get sick. It allows me to keep my kids on my health insurance until age 26 and provides new coverage for over 30 million Americans. So we know it will literally provide health care to millions of American citizens that don't otherwise have it. And most of this, unfortunately, most of this won't kick in until 2014. I wanted to know if you win the election, if you will keep it in play or seek to have it revoked.
I'm against Obamacare. Respectfully disagree. Depends on what the care that you want.
Disagree with what part?
Okay, let's go into it. If you look at Canada, here's the care. Anything more than a common cold, you're going to have major problems. In fact, if you go to Washington, go to any border state in Canada, a lot of Canadians are coming down, paying out of their pocket because of long lines. For example, hip replacement, you have to wait over a year and a half of that care. Hold on, I'll let you finish. The way I put Obamacare is if you want the compassion of the IRS and the efficiency of the DMV running your health care, this is for you. Because really, it's not about, it's about the quality of care. When you talk about health care, you have to not only talk about coverage, but what is that covering? What kind of quality care are you going to get? If you have a hip replacement, if you have a broken leg. And here's where I'm really worried when government-run health care. When you get to a certain age, all of a sudden, you need a very expensive, say, heart transplant. A lot of times people look at the money side of it when you're talking about factors and say, well, we had a pretty good life. We'll give the heart transplant to someone else. And that's happening all over the world when we talk about government-run healthcare. I'm not supportive of the Obama plan. In fact, whether you're, from the state perspective, whether you're for it or against it, one of the biggest mistakes that the state of California is making, in my opinion right now, is whether you're for it or against it, we're rushing to implement Obamacare right now in the state of California. Rushing to implement it. And we right now have a huge budget deficit, and we're spending money that wherever you stand on it, you have to agree that it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and it can be thrown out in the Supreme Court based on the treaties, based on the mandate. And then also, if Obama does not win re-election, almost every other candidate has said that they will repeal it. So I think from the state perspective, whether you're for it or against it, we're wasting dollars right now to rush to implement something and change our state laws, knowing that full well that the Supreme Court or an election can change it. So that, and then when we talk about pre-existing conditions, there's no question we need reform in healthcare. What I would like to see is the federal government come in and allow you to go across state lines or make sure that you can expand your risk pools, so you now have a risk pool that can deal with pre-existing condition problem that we do have. There's no question that insurance companies, because they can't expand that risk pool because they have to stay within the state, then they throw you off when it comes to pre-existing conditions. So we need reform in healthcare, but I certainly don't want a Canadian-type healthcare system or a single-payer system. And in fact, what's going through the legislature right now is even worse than Obamacare. It's a bill by Martin Leno. That's a single-payer bill that says that you cannot own private healthcare insurance. It makes it illegal in California for private healthcare insurance. So if this passes, and by the way, it got to the governor's desk when Schwarzenegger was governor, and we were able to stop it in the state Senate. But here's the situation. If you want to see people flooding out of the state of California, start saying that you can't have private healthcare insurance. And by the way, nonpartisan legislative analyst at LAO has said first-year implementation of this bill is more than our whole general fund that we spend on everything right now. So that's kind of where I stand on some of those health care.
Well, the question was about Obamacare, and Obamacare merely allows people to purchase private health insurance. It is not a state or federal-run care. Also, right now, that was a fact. If you don't like it, you can change that.
We will.
But that is the fact. It is not a publicly run health care plan. It is private insurance, but it puts limits on private insurance. Now, right now, my health insurance costs are more than my mortgage for me, my wife, and 2 kids. And we're healthy. And the insurance costs keep going up. And Obamacare will actually reduce the cost because it increases the insurance pool. And right now, my health insurance company is a for-profit health insurance company that's skimming off about 20% of every dollar that I pay in.
That's wrong, too.
No, it's not. They just said it's 18.5%. Anthem Blue Cross just sent me a letter saying that's their overhead. That's what they're skimming off.
Overhead and profit are 2 different things.
That's true, they are 2 different things, but that's not an accounting issue. They're spending 18.5%.
And you're saying the government will be more efficient?
Really? Obamacare is not government care.
Oh,
it is
not.
I'm sorry, it's insurance.
It's the end of the United States, is what it is.
How many people like Medicare? How many people like Medicare? That is a government single-payer health plan.
Go ahead.
I'd like to disagree here with one thing. We keep hearing things in the newspaper because legislators did not read that bill. We keep getting these other things that are added into. Don't talk. Okay? They're added into that bill that comes out now. They're affecting us. Now, if you tell me a legislator we read that whole bill, I'll be right. Have you read that whole bill?
Tell me a legislator that has personally...
Wait, I asked you a question. I asked you.
They should have never signed it,
That bill
period.
doesn't only include Obamacare. There's some other little things in there that are taxed. And it's come out in the newspaper. A couple of issues have come out in the newspaper.
What did Pelosi?
Identify specifically what you're talking about, and I'll address that. But tell me, no, I haven't. Tell me a legislator that reads every bill that's put in front of him. There's not a bill that's less than 10 pages
You give them
that our senator has read on his own, and that's not a slight, by the way.
They gave a couple of days to read it before they voted on it. You knew they
No,
would.
it was pending for a year.
But we'll move on, but there's a difference between not having time to analyze the bill and there's experts that give you time to analyze and allows people to voice their concerns and go through the process.
Correct.
In fact, there's a lot of bills that I have voted against because it's what we call in Sacramento a gut and amend, where they just drop it in at the last second and they say you're going to vote on it in an hour. And more times than not, when they rush something and they don't go through the proper committee process of where you have experts all analyze, when that happens, there's a lot of unintended consequences. By the way, our energy deregulation did that bill here in 1996 in California, and we had an energy crisis because we did not allow long-term power contracts. We allowed them to come back, and so no one did long-term power contracts, and we ended up with an energy crisis because, again, rush to judgment. I think one of the main problems here is not only did no one know what they were voting on, 2, experts on both sides didn't have time to analyze it because they didn't go through the normal committee process on this bill. But let's move on. We have other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, how will we get to a balanced budget?
Say that again?
How will we get to a balanced budget?
Well, in California, we're supposed to be mandated on a balanced budget, and it's a constitutional. It's something we have to do in terms of the Constitution, but balance on the books and balance in reality are 2 different things. Here's what happens. Too many times in Sacramento, they'll say, okay, we're going to balance it on the books. They'll move some program one day in a fiscal year. They'll say we're going to get all this money from the federal government, knowing full well that we won't get that money from the federal government. And also they'll say we'll have this robust economy, booming economy that's going to turn around the state. And there's no economists that think that we're going to get there. So they kind of fudge the numbers. And we have been spending more than we take in, but on paper, constitutionally, we're supposed to balance the budget. So one of the reforms I have in Sacramento that I thought was something that we should do, and by the way, Bob Hertzberg, former Speaker of the State Assembly, Democrat, runs California Forward, is also talking about this in his reform package, is that we do 1 year, nothing but the budget, then 2-year legislative cycle. 1 year we do nothing but the budget. The next year we do legislation. And that first year of the budget, we do emergency legislation, but other than that, legislators have to focus in on the budget. Now I think to two legislators that judge their success on how many bills they pass, so they can go back to the district and say, I passed 30 new bills for you. Well, that's 30 new regulations. And a lot of times people are just train these bills, they read some of the newspapers, and they ought to be a law. And they want a law for everything. And so what we do is we limit the amount of bills by moving it 1 year. And then number two, in that first year, what's needed in the budget is more oversight. More people that will look and make sure that the money that was spent on this program, and you're measuring it, is it doing what you intended it to do? Is X, Y, Z, when they asked you to pass in the first place, is X, Y, Z happening? And then the legislature can now come in and come in with more oversight. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. One example, when we were about to run out of money in the state of California, when the controller, John said we were literally weeks away from running out of money in the state of California, I had a legislator come talk to me about their bill on what the official state rock of California is. So that shows you that there's a lack of understanding, a lack of the crisis situation at hand, when they're worried about their bill having to do with official state rock instead of almost running out of money in the state of California. And priorities. It's just like you have to prioritize your budget every day, and you fix it when it's a problem, and you make it a priority. We need to do the same thing in the legislature. We need to have more oversight on what we spend.
I'm sorry. Actually, last year the state had 4,000 laws. They have to pay for it.
Right.
And my son's ready to pack up to the state now. Making plans on it. I'm not from the state of California. I was raised in New Mexico. When I came to California, and I was ready to get out here. But this state is as good as New Mexico. I have all this open country. And since my son was up there, so I've had open country. A short time I worked for the Sheriff's Department on the search and rescue. The only time I could get back to the law fighters in the state. I had to drive back and cut off from all the The state of California, like you said, has more government regulation involved in people's personal lives than any other state I've been to. I lived in 5 foreign countries. Those 4 countries are in the same way as California. It's not working for New York.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I'm trying to be part of a reform to come up with these ideas. And again, Jerry Brown says he wants big ideas and he wants to reform. We're going to push and we're going to get pressure on him. Say, look, this is what we need to do. And I'm hopeful that we can get it done. Because otherwise, you know, the reason why I'm involved is when you look at my little girl, Ruby, who's 6, and my boy, we call him Tiny Zone, who's 4. They deserve to grow up in California. I grew up here. I'm a California native. I grew up in Ventura County. And through hard work, you should be able to have those opportunities that I had, that my parents had, and my children should have. And that's why we're trying to reform the state. Because I think this is a beautiful state. I think California is worth fighting for. And me as a California native, I get cold at 70 degrees. It's hard to live anywhere else. But we need to do whatever we can because you have to create that opportunity. And that's what we're losing here in California. Is the opportunity. When I talk about the job opportunities when you come out when you're 16 and you want a job. There's a lot of graduates from college that are having a tough time. They have graduate degrees in top institutions. They can't find a job. And we're losing our opportunities. That's why we're trying to do, that's why I'm here, that's why I'm fighting to do what I can. So hopefully for my kids and my kids' kids to have that opportunity here in California. I would hate for more and more people to leave the state of California. Mike, go ahead.
So there's a few examples that came about.
My point. I'm sorry.
My name's Phil Hicks.
I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm from quick question on high-speed rail. How is Terry Brown squaring this with a very powerful where he keeps the high-speed rail system but continues to cut public education? How is he doing that? How is he maintaining? Because the very powerful teachers union is very responsible for his election. They were the people that backed him up.
Well, I'm not in on those discussions, but what I can say is the high-speed rail, it's been a boom bust. People voted for it, but I'm also offering to build a bill by General Malta to bring it back to the voters, because this is not what the voters intended. By the way, when it first passed, they lowballed the cost of the high-speed rail, and there's been no oversight. And I think the voters deserve, now that we've seen what they're doing, they deserve another shot and another look at having their voice be heard. So I'm going to look at with General Malta, let the voters have an opportunity to look at that. Because again, they lowballed the amount that this would cost, and now they see that there's no oversight. The voters deserve a second opportunity to vote. One more question. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the young guy. I apologize.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go to the young guy.
There's some obvious said about design. Three of us right now are planning for building college this summer. And right now, we're accepting pieces. Next year, me and Jeffrey, my classmate, are planning to go to college next year. And the thing is that right now, as you said, college graduates aren't getting jobs after they get out of college. And we have a problem as you see costs of college. Prices for college education is right now. My parents are looking at some state colleges right now. I'm also Canadian, I'm doing some Canadian citizenship. And right now, we're looking at schools out of Canada and we see a deal. Right now, it's just the prices there about they would be so much cheaper than prices right now for the costs. And so, is there anything that's going to be done about rising costs? Right now, I feel like the costs are going up. That's what some students back costs, transportation costs, education costs, school costs, buses, our expenses.
Well, good news. Yes, we're working on some of the costs. One of the things I'm very proud of that just recently happened a couple of weeks ago is the CSU, the board of directors, raised tuition costs at the same time that they said, well, we have to do this because of budgetary reasons. The president of the university has a huge increase in the salary that was done by an unaccountable board. They came in, and by the way, this president, while they raised their costs, gets more money than the base salary than the COO. And that's just the salary, not to mention the compensation package of the House, the car, and everything else. So this board voted for those increases in salary. So this board voted at the same time that they increased the tuition costs for our kids. So we were outraged, we talked about it. And everybody seemed to be talking about it, happy about it. But then the CSU president came for confirmation and the vote of the state senate. I helped lead the charge along with a guy named Joel Anderson, who stays there from the Elkhorn area. I said, this is an outrage. No one should confirm this person because they were tone deaf. The problem of what we're going on right now in the state of California, where a lot of things where we're going on, why can't I raise the salary? I'm one of 3 legislators that didn't take a car that was offered to me. I took a voluntary ticket personally for the Compensation Commission. I came forward. I took a voluntary for that because I thought it was the right thing to do to show leadership. And they're huge increase on salary. They were tone deaf, and so we led the charge, and we made sure that CSU president is not reconfirmed, is no longer going to be the CSU president. Is not continue with the people of California. So I promise I get you out on time. Go ahead, Mike.
The state of California needs to do the same thing. Mr. Perez, the state of California needs to do the same thing. Has very little experience with Perez. Very goes as very little experience. He gave us aid last year, $80,000 a year raise. That's what he legislated on my long job. And every one of his aides was part of that raise. $80,000 a year. They didn't make it our paper job. They should have. It's $80,000 a year. Not the state company.
I agree. Well, I can just say, those of you that didn't get to ask a question, please write it down, or maybe you're shy. We'd love to do that. Answer your question for my staff. We'd love to get back to you ASAP. And then thanks again for all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and being with us this morning. I really truly appreciate it, and hopefully together we can do it. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. I've seen you before.
Yes.
In San Diego.
Yes.
It's an age thing.
That's all right.
You're doing an excellent job.
And context as well. You look familiar.
Yeah, you look familiar. No.
Caleb.
Michael. Can I ask you
Who I'm with?
Are you with somebody?
Who am I with? I'm a citizen. I'm
I'm
a constituent.
I'm on your side.
Excellent.
So,
you're a citizen.
I'm a citizen.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too.
Thank you.